Okay, welcome to the House Medium. I'm Adele Levine, your House Medium, and this is another cool episode, a little different episode. I'm going to have to throw some of these in, especially this is coming up the month of October. Yes, we are in October now. Now, I know everybody always says spooky season. But when you do what I do, there's no such thing because this is my life. This is what I do on a daily basis. So for me, this is another day, um, another month, another week. But what I think is cool is that I've kind of gotten some different people to come on my podcast that are talking about near death experiences, psychedelic experiences. And that's who I have on today. I found him on TikTok. He is awesome. He's Optimistic Banks. Cool name. Get it? Optimistic, mystical. He does rap. He does positive, high conscious rap, which is very cool. Go follow him on TikTok. You'll probably want to follow him on TikTok after you hear him. He just had like such a cool vibe. I just felt very like chill with him, very relaxed. Definitely am not the person who uses psychedelics, but I am very associated with it, which leads me right into me going to Utah. I'm going to Utah. How is that leading? How does that lead in? How does it lead in? I'll tell you how it leads in because the rabbit hole wellness is the rabbit hole. And if you see the song that I choose when I read Optimistic Bank's email, you'll get it. But rabbit hole wellness is where I'm going to be doing my seance, and it's coming up in 25 days. I will be there. I'm going to be there the 25th, the 26th, 27th, and I'm going to be doing a seance. Now, see, I've done seances a lot in Utah over the years. I just haven't done them recently, meaning like ever since COVID and everything, I took a break. Now I'm back. And I'm doing one-on-one readings. Now, the thing about the seance is it's kind of going fast. And this is what I know about Utah peeps is that people will start to buy and then it'll just be gone. And then I'll get, is there any more spots? Will you do another seance? No, this is it. One night only of the seance. And the spots I have open for readings, that's it. So that's what I have coming up. Also wanted to let everybody know my Patreon, which I'll get into in a minute. Just wanted to do a callback to how I'm tying, you know, the psychedelic experience that Optimistic is going to share with us, and how that ties into the rabbit hole, because that's what they do there. They use medicine to take people on journeys and things like this. But I've been partnering up with wonderful Autumn, who spearheads these types of journeys, who's a part, her and her husband. They work together on taking people on journeys on medicine. I don't use it because it's just way too, like, I already see enough. I've gone down the rabbit hole and then some. So, yeah. So I'm cool. So, however, Autumn and I are going to be doing a retreat in Hawaii, so that's going to be coming up in spring. Stay tuned for that. And she does very well with that, and we complement each other because I take people down the rabbit hole in a different kind of way and raising their vibrations and pushing them through that rabbit hole, so to speak. So I'm excited about all these different things that I'm bringing. I'm trying to bring different type of, um, information, people, and there's still people telling stories. That's what I feel. Like, even though last week I had about the Day of the Dead, they still shared a story, a personal story. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to still give you the story, still stay on track with that, but give you a little bit of extra. However, with that said, I still need your stories. So send them in. Send in your stories to the housemedium at Gmail. And if you want to support this podcast, Patreon, because Patreon this week, let's open up the door and go. This week, this month, rephrase, this month, I am doing a class, of course, on spirit communication, part one. And I am implementing on my Patreon that I will do answering questions this month as well. After the class is posted for a couple of weeks, I will let you know. I'll give notices that I'll be doing a Q&A. And speed readings are going to be a little bit different. There's going to be a little nod to Samhain on the speed readings for October. I had to do something different for October. I mean, come on. I am a medium who talks to the dead. Am I not? Am I not? So look out for that. If you haven't joined my Patreon, you should. It's a great way to support all of the works that I do. And you get something. You get energy climates daily. You get 30% off of all my readings. You get the classes if you go to the sacred tier, sacred scholar tier. And also, I post different things on there. Sometimes I post a little share something about me, sometimes a little tips and tricks. This is what you get on my Patreon, and it's a wonderful community where everybody can convey together and connect. And that's what I like about it. Okay, let's move on out. So please do those things. Send me in your email to thehousemate@gmail. Join my Patreon, and please rate this podcast. I hear all the time, Adele, I love your work. I love what you do. I hear it all the time. This is ways you can help me, get the momentum going. All right, so here we go. We're going to go into optimistic banks. Let me get a sip. I'm having a little sip of water, but I wanted to do a cheers to everybody. Happy October. Let's take. Isn't it pretty? If those of you who are not listening, I have a pretty little, not listening, not watching. I have a little glass. These are little glasses that I copycatted. Shout out to Susie. She knows who she is. These little awesome glasses because I did an event for her. They're like tiny little like wine glasses, so sort of, where you can drink coffee in them or anything. But I love little things that hold things. I know I have a thing for that. So they're so cute. They're so adorable. So cheers to happy October. And yes, I'll say it. Happy spooky season. Let's get into his email. Okay, here we go. Fitting song, right? This is from Optimistic Banks. You can follow him on TikTok. He'll let you know where to follow him and to get his music on Spotify. Just giving him a shout out right before you even meet him. And I'll remind you at the end. So I just asked him to give me a little bit of who he is, a little bit of something he experienced. It really isn't like a paranormal. It's a little different. I'm an artist at heart, always have been, started rapping at 16 years old, did that for a decade or so, then decided to hang up the mic and devote myself to corporate life. Now, when you see him, you're going to know he went through something because he changed quite a bit. I was a salesman and a sales manager for a large telemarketing company for 16 years. Then COVID happened. Long story short, I started using drugs and very quickly started losing everything I thought was important to me. My job, my girlfriend, 12 years, my house, everything. Then at the age of 33, which I just noticed is a magical age, is it not? I tried DMT and 5-MeO, and he put a little frog emoji because if you don't know what that is, it is a psychedelic that comes from a frog, and it is something people use to kind of open up their minds. Now, I'm going to go over at the end after, you hear from him, ways that if you're interested in this type of things, how to be responsible, how to find the right people and all that. And had a near-death experience that cracked me wide open. Started to have psychic experiences, dreams that would come true, and what seemed like non-stop synchronicities. Synchronicities. Why can I never say this word? You know what I'm saying? When things sync up. I was on the verge of losing my mind when my brother suggested I try a meditation. My brother is a Kung Fu Tai Chi master, first time I ever meditated was with my brother during the meditation. I traveled through wormholes, activated my third eye. Sorry, something just activated. I had a throat chakra healing. That's so weird. I just got like a tickle in my throat. What? Love that. Talking about things syncing up. Healing via blue light and saw my ancestral spirits. I jumped up to tell my brother what I just experienced, but before I could say anything, he looked up at me and said, "Was that your eye or my eye?" We had linked experience. Ever since then, I've understood that we are one consciousness expressing itself in infinite ways. And now I do my best to help people understand how to find peace and happiness. And for the few that want to know more about the roots of existence, I do my best to teach mysticism. My musical journey had its rebirth around the same time I had my own rebirth. Creative expression is so important for the mind, body, soul balance. Very true. So I asked him to kind of give me, a little rundown of what happened when he had this psychedelic experience. So here's what he says. I took a rip off of the DMT vaporizer. Within 1 second, all of reality turned into black and white geometric shapes and imploded in on itself. I felt an electrical shock zap through my brain. I knew I just fucked up and did some crazy drug, and now I was dying. I was so scared to die, but there was nothing left to grab a hold of. Banks was gone. Then I went into the void, total nothingness, so peaceful. So he's talking about all of a sudden he has like this peaceful feeling. And have you noticed this has kind of been the theme? Have you noticed that people have told me over and over that they have experienced. If you notice that whenever I do these, people always say that they have like this thing where they disappear, they go away, and then their true self comes into form, which is very much the way I always try to tell people. So he says that I always try to tell people that in the other realm, they're always telling me like we get to our true selves, meaning that when we pass, that's who we find. And this is the kind of the work I do, is trying to help people find their true self. So anyway, he says, so back to him. I went to the void, told the nothing, so peaceful. Although I ceased to exist, I didn't have a body. I saw a silver cord floating in the distance. Then an orb appeared, like a big empty bubble. It was almost cute to me. I was so scared to die, but in this moment, I felt bad for everyone still living. Now, this is also something that I tell everybody all the time that I hear from that realm. It To be nothing and everything all at once was bliss AF. It was like I knew the answers to everything, but I didn't know what the questions were, which is why I believe I decided to come back so that I could experience the questions that I already had the answers to. Now I believe the orb was me, an empty bubble of potential. I love it so much, right? Does this not fit very much what I've tried to tell people that the other realm conveys to me and what it really is like? This is a great story because it's not a negative one. There's a lot of twists and turns of what he experienced and how he became into being of who he was and who he is today. And it's almost like a rebirth, obviously. And this is what I believe when we talk about a rebirth, what it really, really means. It means when you wake up, you open that third eye up, you go down the rabbit hole, you see what's behind this world, and you see your true self. So let's hear what I had to say to Optimistic Banks and what he had to say back to me. Let's hear this now. Hi, everybody. Okay, so I have a special episode. I plucked this person from TikTok. I just plucked him. I said, "Come on, can you come on my podcast?" And he graciously was willing to come on my podcast. This is Optimistic Banks, and he is a rapper. But you'll have to hear what kind of rap he does because it's very different and very awesome. He's a social media personality. He has his own podcast, and he has a really, really cool story that I feel will be very inspiring. And I find his energy very inspiring. So, welcome to my podcast, The House Medium. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So let's get into it. Let's start from the beginning, right? Because there's a lot to kind of cover. I feel like you've had this like path you've been on. And the one thing I want people to know is, just the work that you do and everything. But I always like to kind of go back into the backstory. This is a little different episode for everyone because this isn't you writing in like some crazy paranormal story because you kind of already know some of the things that happened to you. So can you take us through? Because I was reading your email and you had this like whole story of like what you went through during COVID and what happened to you and how you found DMT and the frog one that everybody needs to learn about.
Yeah.
Um, and how all of this kind of opened you up. So can you take us through that?
Yeah. During COVID, I was at a low point in my life where I had this like high paying job, and as far as what society would have told me, I was very successful. I had the house and the girl and
Mm-hmm.
the dog and the cars and all that stuff,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And then COVID happened, and it was kind of just a simultaneous thing that combusted all at once, where I lost my job, then eventually lost the house, lost the girl, lost everything. But when I was in kind of like my one of my darkest moments, high on all types of drugs, a friend came to me who I really trusted and was like, "Hey, I think maybe you need a reset."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, I'm down." And I didn't have much experience with psychedelics. I'd done mushrooms a few times here and there as a young,
Mhm.
you know, that kind of stuff, but never LSD, nothing, no ketamine or anything like that.
Right.
And so I figured it was going to be something like one of those other psychedelics that I heard of before. Um,
Mhm.
and he comes over and he does a little ritual with me, and turns out that I'm actually about to smoke DMT 5-MeO, which I found later is the venom of a toad, and it's
Yeah.
like the most powerful psychedelic known to man.
Yeah.
Uh,
You're like, "Oh, I thought I was just gonna, do a little something, something." And
yeah,
he's like, "No, I'm bringing out the big
yeah.
stuff."
He actually
Yeah.
didn't even tell me. Like, he told me what it was,
Okay.
but I maybe he expected me to do my own research, which I probably should have, but I was, like, kind of losing my mind at the time. I was, like,
Okay.
manic and all types of things, so,
Right.
I just went into it blind, and basically all he told me was, "Okay, I have this vaporizer here where there's pillows on the ground, so, like, I'm assuming I'm gonna be laying down," and he's, like, playing, like, kind of, like, Native American style music, and he's like, "Okay, so I have this vaporizer, you're gonna take a hit from it, you're gonna count
Mhm.
back from 10, and whatever happens, just let go." And I was like, all right, cool. So he sets it up. I take the hit. I'm like 10. And how I perceived it was
Wow.
he kind of like he laid me down on my back, but before my back hit the ground, I no longer had a body.
Yeah.
And how I perceived it was all of reality turned into black and white, like perfect geometric shapes, and
Yeah.
basically kind of like imploded.
Mhm.
And then at the same time, I felt like an electrical zap that went through my brain. And I had a thought, which was, well, like, I just really messed up and I did some crazy drug, and I'm dying. I'm killing
It's
myself.
over.
It's over.
Yeah. Right.
And then it was like, I'm so scared. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Oh my God. But there's nothing to hang on to because you're simultaneously knowing that you're dying, your body is no longer in existence.
Right.
So there's like,
Right.
and then all the I didn't know it at the time, but it was like all the programming was being ripped from me, basically. Like all the things that I thought was banks. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh my God, all these things. What about my life? Oh my God. And then nothing to hold on to, totally gone. And then very quickly felt very peaceful. And I was like, oh, it's okay. It's okay that
Mm.
I've died. And whoa, this is really peaceful. And for me, it was I was in the void, so just complete empty blackness, vastness of nothingness.
Right.
Um, and I had a thought that was like, oh, I feel bad for everybody that's still on Earth right now, because like this
Mhm.
isn't as bad as what people think, and this is actually really amazing. And but at the same time, I was in total nothingness, and I did see my silver cord off to my left, I guess you could say, my left, even though I didn't really have a body. Um, and then all of a sudden, an empty orb appeared in this vastness of nothingness. And it was like an empty bubble. And it was like, it almost had like a light within it, but not at the center. It was just like shining light around it from no source kind of a
Okay.
thing.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it was very cute to me. And I felt very safe with it there. Um, and then from there, I went to a place that is kind of like I feel like it was the place where souls choose their life paths. It's kind of like that movie Soul, where I don't know if you've ever seen
Yeah.
that movie.
Well, I have, and here's the thing. I mean, the exciting thing is that so many things you're talking about, everybody who has followed what I do is like, you've been talking about this. These are all the things that that other realm have shown me.
Yeah.
My whole way of learning has been all from the other side. I didn't learn from
Hmm.
any physical teachers, even down to the silver cord. They taught me like how
Me
when I
too.
take people on journeys, they're
Uh huh.
like use the cord and everything. But when I saw soul, and here's the weird thing, because we both live in LA,
Yeah.
and I read for a lot of people in the industry, I was like, this is very similar to all the things I've talked about. And one of the things was is I always tell people that before you come, you kind of get a cliff note of like what your life, you just get like a brief of these are the paths, but you don't have all of the details because every decision you make is going to start moving that forward. And even down to when, when he got pushed down that hole,
Yes.
I've always said to people, oh, I know that this isn't popular, but I'm not a believer in past lives
Hmm.
because of the things I said, but I respect people's beliefs on it.
Sure.
Maybe just because I just don't think I've ever been here. I don't know. I'm
Mm,
very like, I'm not downing anyone who does. It's just doesn't resonate with me from what I've
mm,
seen so far. But one of the things that was so funny is I've always said I felt like I was like, wait a minute, never mind. I think I'm just gonna like not do this life earth thing.
mm.
And somebody like pushed me down this hole. So yeah, I've seen
Interesting.
that space where people go because when I talk to people past, they always show me like, oh, this is where, and even new souls, the baby souls. And so much of
Yes.
that movie, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that movie came out about 3 months after my DMT experience, so it really tripped me out when I saw it.
Right. It must have been a great confirmation.
It was, it was, but it was also very scary because at the time, I didn't know what any of this was.
Right.
And
You're still like
wasn't in
yeah.
a community of people that understood this either, and I was just like,
Right.
"Am I losing concept of time? Did
Mhm.
that where am I, like, in this time?" Because it was like an
Yeah.
exact reflection of it. It was slightly different, but yeah, I basically went to that place and then,
Oh, and I wanted to interrupt you to say
sure.
this. You know how you said that you said I just felt like suddenly I felt peace and I was like, "Hey, this is not a big deal." Literally almost every reading, and I've done thousands, they'll say, "It's just not like as a big of a deal as everyone's making it out
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be." So even this is why I love hearing this because it's one thing to hear from the dead all the time, but when you hear from a person who's like, "Yeah, I've kind of checked out and then checked back in,"
yeah.
and it's cool to
Well,
hear.
and there was other things that happened during this experience. I mean, it's
Right.
15 minutes in the 3D realm, right? It feels
Mhm.
like no time and also eternity at the same time,
Right.
when
Right.
you're in this state, and
Mhm.
there was definitely things that happened that were kind of like, symbolism that I didn't understand yet, and,
Yes.
when I get visions in my meditations and when I do psychic work and mystic work, most of my visions that I get is in symbolism. I won't get like
Mhm.
exact visions of the future. I will get like animal and plant symbolism,
Mhm.
that I then have to kind of decode. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what that was. That makes
That's
sense.
right. That's how it
So
starts, and it will
yeah,
change. Your sight will
I'm
change
well.
over time.
I should say, I've also had times where it is exactly a vision, but it was past loved ones of people that I was doing readings for that were coming to me prior to the
Mhm.
reading, and I thought it was a dream, and then found out later it was actually from
Right,
the
right,
person
right.
I was reading was from their perspective, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so, but what I will say is that what I find interesting is that I felt like now when I look back on everything that I felt like I went through a wormhole in a way, or like went through space and time to kind of like the end of this timeline for me, if you will. And
Mhm.
it was like I had all these answers to things, but I didn't even know what the questions were. And so now
Interesting.
I've kind of come back through that wormhole, if you will, and now I get to experience that time loop. So I get to figure out what the
Oh.
questions are that I'm
Mhm.
asking, but I already have the answers to, type of a thing. And that has been a very fun adventure over the last 3 years.
That's really cool. So, like, you kinda went to the end of the book,
Yeah.
and you found out a lot of the stuff at the
And
end
it didn't make
of the
any sense.
book, and you're like, "What the hell is this?" And they're like, "Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You're
Yeah,
gonna."
now you're gonna go back and you're gonna read the rest of the book, and that's
Yeah,
basically
you're
what I'm
gonna.
doing. Yes.
That's kinda how it's really interesting because when I'm able to, like, jump time in my own life and see the future, I'm allowed to see that, and even in reading, so this is another confirmation. I can see time, get times and say, "Oh, at this time of year," I can get dates and times and stuff.
Sure.
But I always say to people, I have to jump to when it ends.
Mm.
And because I'm not allowed to know all the things, because
Yeah.
that realm's like, you can't know all the things. You can't know every single part. So I can say, no, 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 I see this will happen here, but I can tell you how to start so you can get there,
Mm.
but it's up to you how you handle the in between. So
Mhm.
that makes sense that they were like, "Listen, this is how it's gonna be, but you have to go back to play it out, almost like live it out,
Mhm.
because you have to live like a human experience."
Exactly. We come here to be fully immersed in the creation, you know?
Yeah. How did you feel when you kind of went what I call home,
Mhm.
and then you come back here? Because a lot of times people have a really hard time because even when I've taken people on journeys, and I used to journey to that realm all the time so much where they kind of kicked me out and were like, "You can't be here. You got to live on this world," kind of like that type of thing. How did you feel? Did you feel, I know you were going through like what the hell was all that, but did you also feel like, God, that felt so much nicer? Or did you miss it, or what did you go through?
It's an interesting question. I kind of feel like, okay, so like when I first came back, the very first words that I said, 'cause my friend grabbed me and was like, what are you thinking?" First thing. And I was like, "Everything matters, nothing matters." And like
Mhm.
I was just, and it was so unbelievable what I had experienced, but it was unbelievable because I couldn't not believe it. Um,
Right.
so at first I was just trying to put the pieces together, and I was really like just trying to, and like, yeah, it was the home, the pure love of being nothing and everything at one
Right.
time. There's no
Right.
denying that. And so that was kind of an easy thing for me to follow. But what I've discovered is, I mean, I from time to time still microdose plant-based DMT just
Mhm.
for mystic purposes, for helping others. I don't use it recreationally, or even use it for myself creatively
Right.
anymore. But what I've discovered is that these psychedelics, these medicines,
Mhm.
are really a way to kind of glimpse the divine. And it's kind of like a way to teach you that frequency so that you
Right.
can learn to embody that in the 3D realm, the earthly realm.
Mhm.
So now I'm constantly practicing on how to feel like I'm in heaven while I'm here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I have a saying, the reason why I do this work is everyone can find peace on a mountaintop, but it's hard in the middle of chaos. So I'm trying to help people to connect to that realm with having to be here.
Yeah.
And I have a friend where I'm actually going to Utah next month, and she's in Utah, and she works with all medicine. That's how she works with
Mhm.
people, all medicine based. and I do mine all natural based. So we kind of make a good team. And I'm always telling her I see a lot too much to there. Just I don't just keep that away from me, because even if I do too much weed, I'm like somewhere
Sure.
else,
Hmm.
and so it kind of freaks me out.
Yeah.
but she does use it for what you're saying, and I do feel like if you use it in the proper way. But I think that then you can like open the door to like peek, and it's hard for people to let themselves open the door. It's like you got thrown into the
Yes.
deep end. You were
I mean,
it was just like something just said, "You know what? Whatever."
I guess I was the crazy one who was like, "Yeah, I'll try this," right? But, like, other than that, like, honestly, I was kind of a wussy up until that point in my life.
Mhm.
Um, like, so much to point like, I didn't even know what was gonna happen after I died. Like, I didn't really think about it that much. So which is, like,
Oh,
probably
interesting.
why I went to the void, went to the nothing, right?
Right.
'Cause, like, I didn't really
Right.
know. But, like, yeah, so I think that overall, like, yeah, these things are just a way to kind of glimpse in at it. But once the door is opened, like, don't go back to sleep, people. Don't go back to sleep.
Yeah, stay
Keep going.
awake.
Keep going.
Stay
It
awake,
gets
right.
cooler and cooler, I promise you.
Yeah. 100%. That's always what I'm saying. I'm like, stay awake, stay awake. I know it's hard, because do you find that since you've had that experience that sometimes it's amazing and it helps you with this world, but it does it ever kind of fold in on you and you're like, why am I even like doing this laundry right now? Like, this is the mundane part.
Sure.
Does it seem harder, or how do you
Um,
handle that
for
for
me,
yourself?
it's just so much better than my life was before. It's
Okay.
made my life so much better. And but I've also, I've done the work. Um, when I first started awakening, I was kind of just preaching things on social media, just kind of like I was basically channeling, didn't know I was, but just kind of speaking like how I kind of felt about things and the oneness and
Right.
that kind of stuff. And then people would tell me like, hey, like you're quoting like Buddha, or you're quoting this from
Mhm.
Hinduism, or you're quoting this from, and then I was like, oh, well, I guess I got to start looking into these things that I'm aligning with, that I'm talking
Right,
about.
right.
And through that, I it was like I had this I couldn't stop learning. I wanted to learn about this stuff so much, and I would just consume, 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 take what resonates, leave the rest. I don't resonate with all of Buddhism. I don't resonate with all of Hinduism, all of Christianity, but I take pieces from it that do resonate with me. And like, we talk about in Buddhism, they say like, before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. So
Right.
it's like I try to remember those type of things, and like it's okay to be Clark Kent and Superman. You can be
Yes.
both, It's like you actually kind of have to have a break, and it's
I
okay to,
choose Wonder Woman, but
yeah,
you can
sure.
choose to.
It's the same. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
yeah. It's okay to be. I mean,
sure.
we're superhuman. It is what it is, and everybody has the capability to do it. But like once you open it up, I love being a mystic. I love being in both worlds. It did take a
Mhm.
while getting used to it, and it's definitely not for everybody. A lot of people just want
For
to
sure.
know how to have a peaceful life, and I'm more than happy to help them with that as well. I want to know the roots of existence. That's my thing. So
Mhm. Yeah. No, I agree, and I love the part that you talk about, that where you, like, had those things come natural, and then people are like, "Oh, that's blah, blah, blah." Because 'Cause I've had people say that to me, I'm like, "I don't know, I learned it all from that realm,"
mhm.
but I'm glad to know these confirmations that I'm picking up on something that is in line with so many other people. Like, obviously, I know I'm not the first one to have like know this. Even the saying that I said, have peace on a mountaintop is easy and all that. I always say his name, but the yogi, what's the yogi that they have the in Malibu, they have a whole thing in Malibu towards him. Yoda Ganda, I always say his
Oh
name
yeah,
wrong.
I think that's, yeah.
Yeah.
I am familiar with who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, he has a saying, believe it or not. I like to play video games, and there's a video game called Red Dead Redemption.
Oh yeah.
And there's a song in there that Unshaken. And if you look at the lyrics, it's like, I will not stand unshaken amidst a crashing world.
Mm,
It's very that's the same saying. It came from him.
yeah.
And D'Angelo liked the game so much, and he
Mm,
liked that book that he writes the spiritual song for Red Dead Redemption. And
love
I'm
it.
like, is that amazing? Because I'm like, there's ways to get that kind of energy out there, but I
Yeah.
feel like Yeah,
I
I
have to
feel
help
like you're
people a
right.
lot with like with a lot of people that come into the spiritualism and the mysticism. When we first wake
Mhm.
up, we want to like shake everybody awake and we want to be like, why don't you
Right.
see what I see? What the heck?
Right.
Right.
Get out.
And
Right.
yeah, and it's just it's off-putting, number one. Number two, it doesn't work. And and
True.
you will find that life is so much more interesting when you're a little bit mysterious about things and you
Mhm.
drop breadcrumbs like that. Like, and
Mhm.
that is, in my opinion, that's source, that's God godding. You know what I mean? Like that's source doing what it always does, which is it's always going to leave us breadcrumbs. It's always going to lead us back home. It's always, and sometimes people don't even know they're doing it and they're doing
Yeah.
God's work.
Yeah, totally. I feel like people, there's all kinds of ways to get that information, and all the time that, when I see people, they're like, kind of, pushing their, I guess I want to say, agenda. It could start to turn into the things you don't like,
Hmm.
which is people who get like too preachy or too pushy. And it's natural though, because once you kind of go through something, you really want people to like, go, hey, guess what? It doesn't have to be as difficult as you're
Sure.
thinking. But it is true. Like, I love that you said, not everybody wants to do it. I always say that to people. I say, even what I do, I'll say, not everybody wants to be a professional piano player.
Hmm.
But some people just want to learn piano. So it's totally fine. And that's totally fine. Okay, so let's get into which is why, me being a reader, when I saw you, I can read people's energy. Obviously, I was like, okay, he's coming from a legit place. Because I don't just invite people on for the sake of inviting people on, because most people write in a story and it's just people with their stories. But I was like, I don't know, I could feel where he's coming from. I could tell he's coming from a authentic place, and a humble place, which is important too, because we talked about. And I was just kind of interested in how your journey happened. So let's get to, like, obviously, this all changed your life. And then rapping, you said you've been doing since you were 16. So you incorporated the two. Is that what you decided to do?
Yeah. So yeah, I started rapping at 16, was in a hip hop group called the Sophisticats for like 10 years. And then decided to basically follow a girl instead of following the music. But ironically, at the same time, the music kind of broke apart and like people went different ways and like
Okay.
Um, so then I kind of went into the corporate world, into sales. I was a sales manager for a long time, and I felt like the call back to music like hard after the DMT experience, and it was just like I couldn't. But it was calling to me, but I didn't know what to do really because I didn't know how to make beats or anything. I was just a rapper for those 10 years. Like I wasn't a producer or any. I didn't.
Right,
I
right.
was out of the industry. I didn't know anybody anymore. So it was kind of like
Hmm.
this slow trek to like, okay, I guess I got to like get a computer. I got to like get my stuff. I got to like figure out how to make beats. And so it was just kind of like a slow process. And at first, I didn't even really want to do hip hop. I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to do pop music. Maybe I'm going to do country music. Maybe I'm going to do EDM, maybe I was, and all of it was really just me not being confident in myself in a strange way.
Right,
Um,
right.
and so through all of that, eventually I had this grand awakening where I was like, oh my God, because I was trying to figure out like who is my musical fan, who's my audience. And
Hmm.
at the same time, I was like kind of starting my podcast that was not, we weren't really sure what it was going to be about, but we figured maybe music, maybe psychic stuff. We didn't really know. And it was all
Right.
about the same time where I was like, oh my goodness, it's always been there. I've always been into conscious hip hop, Wu Tang, Most Def, KRS-One, like a lot of these guys that talk about like very interesting things, not just everyday life. I mean,
Right,
and
right, right.
so I was like, oh my goodness, conscious hip hop, like it, it was just this awakening where I was like, it's all the same people. It's actually the people that have always been my friends. It's me, and it's people that are into artistic things and spirituality and hip hop. And then it was just like, click, okay, I know what I got to do now. So it was kind of just like, at first I was kind of dancing around who I was and like, I'm going to make songs about this and these specific topics about like nothing to do with mysticism, just kind of like, and then I would start kind of sprinkling in little mysticism. And then when I realized, oh no, that's actually who I am, then I could just pour on more. I'm like, oh, okay, I pour on more mysticism to my tracks and I know exactly what I need to do now. And it was just bing and it all fell into place.
So, what do you do with it? Like, do you? Is it just for your podcast? Are you putting it out there? Are you doing albums?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
tell
so I
everybody,
have
like,
one album as Optimistic Banks. I reinvented myself about a year ago. So I have one album out as Optimistic Banks. It's streaming everywhere,
mhm.
Spotify, iTunes, all your favorite streaming services. So yeah, the point is um the point with my podcast or with my art is really just to express myself fully, and I am a firm believer that if I express myself fully and do what's fun, that it will make me funds eventually. So,
That's very good. That's like
it's a
the real
win-win
way.
win-win for everybody,
Right.
you know? Yeah.
I agree with that. That's kind of like the idea, the universe always calls it a give and take. In magic, they call it paying the coin.
Mm.
So paying the coin means that if you are giving something out to, somebody and they have to return it, but the universe kind of works the same way.
Wow, I love that.
So in the magic world, they call it that because dealt with a lot of witches
Oh, yeah.
and witchy people.
Mhm.
So what you didn't mention and tell everybody the name of your podcast and
Sure.
what it's about and what you guys do on it, and because I've seen a lot of your clips on TikTok.
Yeah. So the name of our podcast is The Brooks and Banks Show. My brother's name is Brooks. My brother is a kung
Okay.
fu master. He's been doing kung fu for over 25 years.
Oh wow.
Shaolin kung fu as well. And Tai Chi and Bagua and all that kind of fun stuff. So yeah, it's called The Brooks and Banks Show. It's on YouTube. We talk about mysticism. We talk about kung fu. We talk about hip hop. We talk about aliens, ways to improve your life, and kind of all the above. And we just find it fascinating talking about kind of like how mind, body, and soul all kind of reflect each other. And we like to talk about just kind of like I might talk about how metaphorically our mind, we try to like be really masculine with it and like get things done when
Right.
you will find it's more beneficial to be a little more feminine, allow it to come to you, and then use your masculine energy to do something with it. That's like we talk about the metaphors between that and martial arts, how when you first start out with martial arts, you got to do really like hard kind of like iron bone training and sparring, but then eventually people figure out it's not very sustainable and they have to do more fluid, kind of more feminine Tai Chi style martial
Interesting.
arts. So we're always talking with each other about those kind of things and like, oh, how ironic that this all fits together. And also it's so cool that kung fu, it comes from mysticism, it comes from shamanism, it comes from
Yes.
people in nature observing and
Hmm.
saying, how can we bring this into the body now, and things like that. So
Yeah, so pulling it, like believing the energy is like outside of you. Because I always say to people, the way it's been shown to me from that realm is manifesting is that that energy already exists and then you're pulling it into the physical. So it's almost like a dance that you're
mhm,
flowing with it.
absolutely.
So I think that's really cool. Okay. So you didn't say, oh, you did say the name of it. Yeah. Brooks and Banks,
The
your
Bricks and
brother.
Banks
Okay.
Show.
So do you, when you are doing the podcast, do you put in your music into it as
Yeah,
well?
I
Do you?
mean, we do like the intro and the outro song is my music that I've made. And like sometimes we do incorporate talking about just like hip hop that we've done in the past and who I'm going to be doing stuff with in the future. But the main focus of the podcast is mysticism and helping people with their lives.
Oh,
Through
nice.
it's me speaking my mind and my brother and I speaking our minds, and we're basically
So you have a
channelers.
brother that shares this with you. That's like, and
Yeah.
it's not like for a lot of people, a lot of clients, a lot of listeners, that's one of the hardest things for them. The reason why they stay, in the broom closet, as they say, is because of their family members
Hmm.
and what they're going to say and what they're going to think.
Yeah.
So that's kind of amazing. You guys share that together.
Very fortunate. We kind of woke up at the same time. I guess my brother's wake up was like a gradual one because he got into Shaolin Kung Fu when he was like 17, 18, and started meditating through that. But it was kind of just like, this is a part of what we do along with the physical martial arts. But he would have kind of like very interesting experiences when he would meditate. And he was like, and then he'd tell his Sifu, like, yo, I just had like some crazy stuff happen in a meditation. And he
Right.
was kind of like, Sifu would always be like, yeah, we know this kind of things can happen. This is actually why we put it in part of, because it is a part of it, right?
Hmm.
So my brother was kind of like, that's really tripped out and interesting, but never really even shared that with me. Um,
Okay.
he had a few experiences growing up where he had dreams that would come true and things like that. So when I started becoming manic basically and losing my mind with visions and synchronicities and just wild things that were happening to me. He was the one who told me, like, okay, you need to learn how to meditate. And then the first time I meditated with him, we had a linked experience where we saw all types of cool, crazy things. So yeah, we're very
Oh,
fortunate.
can you get into that experience a little
Yeah.
bit? What happened between you and him?
Yeah, so he told me I needed to begin to start meditating. I was losing my mind at the time. And I went over to his apartment and we sat in his living room and I was like, I just Googled like a guided meditation on YouTube and it was
Mhm.
whatever one we clicked, it was like a blue light meditation. So it was a guided meditation with a woman speaking and she kind of like led us in with like imagine like a feather falling or a petal falling, kind of like your average meditative kind of stuff.
Right.
And there was kind of like a point where we did like a forgiveness ritual too. And then
Oh.
right after that, like I very quickly was like, whoa, I'm in outer space. And
Mm.
it was like
Mhm.
pure, beautiful. It wasn't like the void. This was like just like, whoa, I'm here. Even though I'm like sitting on a couch and my eyes are
Because
closed.
you
I'm
were a
like,
little more astral projecting that
exactly.
because where you went to, the void is beyond this world. I always tell people astral projecting is this world where you're
Hmm.
like in space or you're around your house or whatever. So
Yes.
you're just like floating around space.
Yeah, and then I noticed in the distance a wormhole that was, like, spinning, and I was like, "Whoa, that's cool," and I'm a very curious-minded person, so I was like, "Oh, that's cool," and, like, this time, like, I'm not hearing the meditator telling me anything that the guided meditation, I'm just, like,
Yeah,
totally immersed, I'm like,
doing your own
"Whoa."
thing.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"That's cool, let's go check it out," and I rode through this wormhole like every movie you've seen where people go through wormholes, it was like, like, all these different colors where I was like, "Whoa," and it was, like, totally cool, and then when I came out the other side, very quickly a black puff of smoke like came at me like twirling, and I was like, "Whoa!" And out of it came an eye and a little bit
Oh
of a
wow.
cheek, and it looked like me, but like an older me. And
Oh yeah.
I was really tripped out by it, and I was like, "Whoa!" And it said, "It's okay." And then it came into my face and kind of like disappeared into me. And then
Yeah.
another wormhole opened up. So I was like, "All right, let's
Mhm.
keep going." So I went into another wormhole, and then when I came out the other side of that, how it looked to me was it looked like Pride Rock from Lion King at nighttime. So and I was
Okay.
the only reason why I could even see a silhouette of like Pride Rock type of a thing, was because there
Yeah.
was a bright blue light in the distance behind the rock, and it was like starting to kind of twinkle and kind of come behind it. And I was like,
Mhm.
"Whoa, what is?" And it kind of like scared me, and I was like, "I don't know, this is like really freaky." And right about that time, I heard my brother go, "Are you okay?" And I didn't answer him because I was like so immersed in it. I was just like, whoa. And I was like, no, 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 this is scaring me. And just when I was like, this is scaring me, I dropped down into
Mhm.
a black and white version of the room that I was actually in. So in my brother's apartment, it was the exact same replica, except it was black and white and kind of like the lines were kind of like merged together.
Swirly.
Yeah, swirly,
Yeah.
And I like looked over to my right and I saw an hourglass shape of like ghosts essentially like spirits, and they were like ooh, and they were like in this hourglass kind of like thing like moving around. And then one came out and she took a human form, and it was an older woman, with her hair tied back. She had glasses. She was wearing like a nurse's uniform or like a waitress uniform from like the 1950s or 60s. And she
Mhm.
ran over to a door that was actually in the room and was like frantically trying to open up this door. And I was like, I was tripped out by it all. And then the ghosts were all kind of like, woo, like coming toward me. And I was like, yo, 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 this tripped me out. This is my first time. And then as soon as I was like, this is tripping me out, this is my first time, everything disappeared. And I got up and I went over to my brother and I was like, Brooks, the craziest thing just happened to me right now. And then the first thing he said to me when he looked up at me was that your eye or my eye? And I
Oh,
was like,
cool.
how is this possible?
That's awesome. Yeah.
And yeah,
You guys connected. It's very possible. I've done classes where I've had people do that together,
we've
where
done
I
it
have
multiple
people
times
partner.
since then.
Yeah. You can it's totally, yeah, totally. It especially helps if you trust the person
Yeah,
that
100%.
you're doing this with.
Hmm.
But the blue light is actually very good. The blue light is always the light that I work with, and it's really kind of the higher beings. That's probably why
Mm,
you were a little bit higher beings, meaning, if you want to call them angelic slash alien slash same thing.
sure.
I
Anything.
always
Yeah.
kind of see work with the blue light with Saint Michael, which to me is just a representation of the protector.
Mm.
So I kind of feel like something was trying to like go, hey, this is cool. We can take you a little further, and you're like, I don't know if I want to go that far
Yeah,
because yeah,
I did
it's like
find out
going a
later.
little far
It
out.
was. What was interesting is my brother was not tripped out by the blue light, and he stayed with it.
Okay,
And he
yeah,
was
see,
like,
because the blue light's good.
yeah, he was fully immersed in it. And I did a little bit of research on it, and some people think that maybe it was kind of like a throat chakra healing type of a thing, you know. But either way, like the woman who went and opened up the door, I had never met her in my life, and I went home and I asked my parents, I'm like, is there anybody in our lineage who looks like this? And it was my dad's aunt, and he showed me a picture, and it was her. And she
Yeah,
was a nurse. She was a healer.
yes,
So,
yeah. She was trying to where what you were seeing, first of all, the blue light is 100%, at least because I've worked with the blue light
mhm.
for years and years. It is the energy that I use to it is a healing energy, but it can heal all of the parts.
Okay.
But it's also a protective energy,
Mm.
and that blue light is standing there to make sure you don't go too far. Like
Ah.
it's like we're here. And it's
Mm.
interesting you saw mountains because whenever you remember at the beginning you said when you jumped out of your body, you were like, oh man, I could just like do this stuff. Anytime I've ever had dreams of me flying, which I've dreamt of me flying since a kid,
Yeah, me too.
I'll fly and then I look down, I'm like, I'm out of here. I literally have this attitude like, you guys are stuck on the ground,
Yeah.
whatever. And I start flying and I always go to the mountains and crash because
Mhm.
they won't let me go
Oh,
past the mountains.
interesting.
They're like, I hear a voice will say you're going too far, and then I
Mm.
crash. But I don't crash where I'm like hurt or scared. I'm like just annoyed because I almost made it over the
I get
water.
that.
Because
Yeah.
you go to the mountains, I'm about to get to the water, and I'm about to like get out of there, and something stops me. So my sense is
Yeah.
that something was like, yeah, you could come this far, but you can't go past this far. It's
Yeah, and I think
almost like
your energy is
pushed you away.
obviously your energy is obviously needed exactly where it is, and, like, I think, yeah, it's definitely fun to go travel, though. Um
Yeah, yeah. Well, when you go too far, you mean it's more like the death world,
Right.
meaning like you may not come awaken.
Sure, sure.
And the place that you saw is those are that's the place the spirits kind of like meet you. I call it the lobby. And so what you were seeing was they were turning from energy to like, hey, it's me. Let's go through this door. And you were like, what's going on? So
Yeah.
I think it's that's quite a bit for your first
First
meditation.
meditation ever. I thought my whole life I was closing my eyes and looking at the back of my eyelids. You know what I mean? And then realize that, like, not only is the entire universe inside me, but, like, beyond that, like, whoa.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's a good way of saying it. The universe is inside you. That's very interesting because you had that experience of
Oh,
being
yeah,
part of everything.
I'm a big believer in the fractal kinda holographic nature of everything, and it doesn't, I some people when I believe that that I don't even like to use the word God, but, like, I believe that, like, God is everything basically.
Exactly.
Like,
Same.
so that's me, and that's also
Mhm.
you, and that's also this microphone, and it's also, like, everything. So and
Yeah.
I some people, when they first hear that, they almost think that I'm being narcissistic, and I promise you that I'm not, that it is actually a universal love thing, and if you come full circle with that, it's so beautiful.
No, no, no. It's the idea. I think what when I say the universe
Yeah.
or someone says God to me, it's an energy, it's a collective whole. And we're all like I always try to explain to people in this realm we're obsessed with what makes us different and separate, and in that realm it's a collective.
Oh, wow.
And that even like so you don't have to I don't have to like verbally explain to you anything in that realm. I don't have to go through. I just kind of connect with you. You got it, we got it, we're good. And that's why people would always say to me, well, how do people find each other? Go, you just think of the person, they pop up, just
Yep.
like your aunt. You weren't thinking of it, but she's like, I better help him out because he's just floating around and doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
And they just pop up, and it's because it's connected.
Mhm.
So I try to explain to people in that world, there's not an obsession of separatism.
Mhm.
We're very obsessed with what makes us different from each
Mhm.
other. In
Absolutely.
that world, it's like more of a collective. connection. So that's how I believe about God too.
Yeah,
I don't really see it. There's no hierarchy is what I'm
I
saying in that
agree.
world.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think that essentially in the material plane, let's say that
Yeah.
like um it's all an expression of duality, that like the light cannot know itself amongst the light, the dark cannot know itself
Exactly.
amongst the dark, and that can manifest in some
Hmm.
strange ways, in some
Yes.
messed up ways, and some beautiful ways too.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's the main question I would always ask. Well, if you want me to do this work, it's really hard to explain to people the dark side of this world
Yeah.
because it is hard for people to understand. Well, how are these things happening? And it's because you do have to know both.
Hmm.
And I try to do this work in my nice little bubble, and that realm's like, nah, it's not gonna. You
Yeah,
gotta know,
you
you
got to
gotta
know.
understand both. My last question to you that I before we get into, we want to let people know where to find all your fun stuff, things you do. But I can't let you go without jumping into my favorite thing you mentioned, which was aliens. Have you
Oh,
had
cool.
experiences?
Oh yeah.
Myself, I've had interdimensional. I've had one craft experience, but most of them have been interdimensional. So what's your deal?
Sure. So, well, it starts with my mother would always have ET experiences. She grew up in Florida on the water, had a lot of nothing
Okay,
where nothing where she has at least told me where she was brought up on a ship or anything, but just saw them all the time. And then
interesting.
I was obsessed with like I before my spiritual awakening, as I would say, like from the age of like 16 until like 30, I was very much like a conspiracy theorist, very much into
Okay,
learning about everything there could possibly be. I mean, my old hip hop group made an entire album about like conspiracy theories and aliens and things like that. So like
okay,
I've been into it for a long time on the 3D level.
yeah,
Basically by the time I was 18, I'm like, okay, like 9/11 was an inside job, aliens are real, like now what? Like, okay. And
right.
like so, but it's just like so I've always known kind of from that, and I've always been obsessed with the ancient astronaut theories. And now I don't even necessarily believe all the things that I grew up, collecting data from. But so that was all that with me. So I had a very good foundation of understanding for when they did come into my life. And I've had
Hmm.
an abduction experience, but I only remember getting beamed up into the ship, and I don't remember actually being on the ship. But I see them almost every time I meditate.
Wait a minute. You can't just bypass the story. We need to know. You can't
Yeah.
just flippantly tell this.
Okay. Okay.
You're
Good
like,
point.
oh, I went to the grocery store and bought
Okay.
some
Okay. So it
hamburgers.
was it
Okay.
was from my perspective, it seemed like a dream. So it
Okay.
wasn't like I was walking around, right? It was like from my perspective, it
Yeah.
was a
Yeah.
dream in my backyard. And
Okay.
I remember my family was with me, and like I was like, no, 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 take me type of a thing. And then they took me, and I was like kind of scared, but then I was like, oh, it's all good. I'll just go. And that's all I really remember.
So you don't remember how you got to the backyard?
No,
Do you remember what you saw once you got there?
no. I mean, I saw a flying saucer type craft with a
Did your
bright
family see it as well?
I mean, in the dream they saw it, but not in real life, I guess, right?
Did
Like,
you talk to them about
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
nobody
I talked to
remembers
my mom
anything?
about it. Yeah. No, no one remembers anything.
Interesting. So nobody has any memory of that, just you.
Just me. Yeah.
Do you feel like you lost time?
For me, it was very much it just felt like a dream. Um, where I mean, like, as you know, sometimes when we're sleeping, where we fall into that kind of like a theta state,
That
where
in
we get,
between
yeah, like
state, yeah.
flashes, right? So it was almost
Mhm.
like one of those flashes of like, whoa, this is happening, and then like out.
Okay, yeah. Interesting. Let me ask you this. Do you really feel you might have left the house? Here's why I ask
Mhm.
you, because the one thing about those beings that they like to do now is make people feel like kind of almost give you like a VR experience that you actually are going somewhere, but you actually been in the same space with them.
Mm.
Do you think that would that in your senses, does that feel right? Or does it feel more right you were out in the backyard?
Now that I'm thinking about it, it almost wasn't from my perspective. It was almost like I was watching this happen to me.
Exactly.
Mm,
That's what I'm
wow.
trying to say.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
That's how they like to work.
Whoa. Okay.
So, it's almost like giving you so the thing about
Like a
those
third perspective
beings
type
yeah.
of, yeah.
Well, they like to kind of docile you a little bit so you're not, like, freaked out, so they'll give you an image that's familiar, like, "Here's your family, here's the
Mhm.
backyard, you're fine, everything's good," and you're like, "I'm in my backyard, I'm with my family," and they're like, "Yeah, that's it," and so
It's very Rick and
but
Morty.
yeah, it's very Rick and Morty,
So trippy.
for sure, right? But yeah. Hopefully it doesn't get too Rick and Morty because it gets crazy
I
on
love
that
it.
show.
I honestly, I love it. That's why, like, I used to be scared of all these things, and never since my near death experience, I'm like, yo, bring it
Oh,
on,
no,
homie. Like,
I love all of it, but I know that that's so when you're seeing it from you're watching yourself,
yeah.
that's because they like to kind of almost hypnotize in a way or
Hmm.
give, like, something so you're kind of like almost like a anesthesia type of thing, and then your spirit can kind of
Mm.
be more connected because that's
Yeah.
how they communicate.
Makes sense.
So I think it's kinda interesting, but when you have, like when you start kinda raising your frequency like you've been doing, you grab those types of beings' attention.
Hmm.
So, I have a feeling like that's
Oh,
why I was saying
I literally asked for it too. I don't ask for things
Right.
like that anymore, but like at the time I was really manic, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well then show me then. Like, show me. Like, what's up? You know what I mean? They showed me.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah. And they'll do that, and they'll do it if they think you are hanging out on that frequency.
Mhm, for sure.
You know what I mean? They wanna make sure you can communicate a little bit. So, it just saying, if you ever wanted to, do a little more Rick and Morty, traveling, you could always send that
So
out to them.
definitely, and okay, so just so you know, like now I am able to meditate and lock into the astral realm within like 10 seconds of closing my eyes. It's like
Mhm,
I don't need any technique, nothing. It's just bam, I'm
mhm,
there. And for a while I would just kind of go into random dimensions. It would start out in outer
mhm.
space, swirling stars, kind of like go into a wormhole, and then I would just end up in random places. And I've since have other psychic intuitive people that have helped me that are like, you have to set an intention of like where you want to go
Where
and
you
like,
wanna go. Yeah.
and since I've been doing that, it's big game changer. Big game changer.
Yeah, it gets faster and faster. So why don't you give people, um, your, like, a little bit of tips of kind of like how you started because I feel like it's good. It's one thing like I teach this and I've been doing this forever, but I do this professionally for like a million years
Mm,
and people hear that from me. But I think it's neat to hear from somebody who started off like, hey, I was doing some corporate work and then bam, I got thrown into the deep end of the pool. And then I kind of found my way here because I feel like a lot of people don't think that they can allow themselves to kind of travel that direction. Can you give some people a little bit of tips of how you got past fears and how you do it, how you allow yourself to open up to that realm?
yeah, I mean, having the near death experience definitely helped me out a lot because I mean, I will be honest
Besides
with
having
you.
to
Yeah, like I said, I was a wussy before that, and after that, it was like I was not worried about. So, I mean, just from my personal experience, like I don't believe that I'm ever gonna die. Like my consciousness isn't gonna die, you know. So like
Right.
death really doesn't bother me. So having that is just it's a lot easier. But obviously, not everybody's gonna have that experience. So what I have discovered is that even through all the terrible things that I've been through in my life, all the terrible things I
Mhm.
did to people, the lies, the deceit, um, that I ended up exactly where I wanted to go. And I'm not saying that you should lie and cheat your way there. And that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, no,
But
at
I'm
least
saying that
not.
it is amazing
Mhm.
how all roads lead to the same place, which is really just self enlightenment, self development, self discovery. And I do a lot of work with people where they're looking for they're trying to find like what sets their soul on fire,
Mhm.
or trying to follow through with it once they find it. And I'm like, yo, like for me, all creative expression is very important for me. And I don't know where I'm going to end up with it, but I know that I love doing it, and that through doing it, I figure out what I want to do. So it's like you have to start with
Right.
that first little thing. You never know where it's going to lead you. So don't be attached to how you're going to get there.
Mhm.
And just really have fun and follow your bliss and follow your highest excitement, no matter what it is. You really got to follow it. And at the end of the day, it's always going to feel like you're not going to get there, which is what makes it fun, actually. But you're going to get there. Everybody is going to get exactly what they want. Everybody is. So start really putting intention out there for what you actually want, because what you'll find out that you actually already have it, and you just have to settle into being you.
Yeah, being your true self,
Mm-hmm.
very much. I wanted to leave you with this. When you jumped down into that wormhole and you saw yourself, you can do that. That's something I do remote view and see myself in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you can't see yourself like in the in between stages,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, because I definitely try all the time to cheat all the things.
Oh yeah.
But that realm tells me like you can't know all the
You're trying to
things.
take the fun out of it, girl. Stop trying to take
I
the
know.
fun out of it. Come on now.
I know. I try. I'm like, let me just try to look. And they're like, listen, you have to live this life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, all right, but that's what you did. You just jumped and you
Yes.
saw yourself.
Very
But you
aware.
could do that if you at any time. And
Yeah.
I get the feeling you don't care
I
as
don't
much
care
as
anymore.
me.
I
Yeah,
used
because I'm
to.
more obsessed with the future because
Yeah.
I see it and I've been able to see the future so
Sure.
much. It's probably not healthy, and learning how to be more here
Well,
is
it
obviously
just
the
depends on
goal.
your personal experiences, because like in my personal experience and what resonates with me the most is I believe that there are infinite timelines, and that I'm essentially just choosing, there's infinite versions of me, and I'm just choosing which version through my consciousness, through my decisions at any time. So like I'm really like, although there is, in my opinion, there is a future timeline and even a corresponding timeline where World War III is going to happen. I feel confident in my own belief that I am manifesting the timeline that I'm on, and that's not going to happen in my timeline. That's my personal belief. So I find comfort in
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's interesting. I have more of a belief that because this is how I see the future and see things is every decision we make kind of creates like a domino effect. So if you turn left or you turn right, two different outcomes are going to
that. Mm-hmm.
start to unplay. Only because I've been able to do
To
that.
see, yeah. I
So
agree with you on that
yes,
100%.
yeah,
I just believe
yeah,
that the other one that you didn't pick still keeps going and does exist, and
yeah.
that
I'm not
you can
sure
make
about it.
decisions to come back to it. That's my personal
Okay,
opinion.
that's it.
Yeah.
I know that's a lot of people find that very fascinating. I do find it fascinating. I still have a question mark on that one, but I
But
definitely get what you're
ultimately, what I
saying.
believe is that like literally everybody's manifesting their own universe. So literally whatever you believe is the truth. And I love everybody for that. And that, the only ultimate truth is your truth, in my opinion. I kind of believe that like
True.
everything's
Yes,
all there's no such thing as objective reality in a weird way. Like it's all subjective in my opinion, type of a thing.
definitely. Yeah. So where can people find your all of your stuff? Let people
Sure.
know where to
So
find
I'm on
all of the things you're doing.
TikTok. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. It's Optimistic Banks. It's OPTIMYSTIC, optimistic. And then my first name, Banks, BANKS.
Okay, that's where I got the mystic part. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
It's optimistic
Optimistic.
with the mysticalness of
I love
mystic.
it. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very, very good. Very, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so go check out all of his stuff, his music and everything. He
That's right.
is
I'm
very
streaming on all your music platforms too, baby. So let you know. Go check me out.
Go check him out, and I can tell you for sure he's very optimistic. He definitely has that energy on his TikToks and everything I've seen. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I so appreciate you like jumping on this timeline with me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to come back anytime, and just everybody just keep on being yourself, expressing yourself. Everything's going to be okay, I promise.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You got it.
Bye.
Bye.
So, yes, there's a lot that was going on. It changed him quite a bit. He became a different person, or he became more his true self. Kind of feels like this was part of who he always was. But sometimes you do need something to kind of rip open that third eye, open you up, let go of the fear, and see the world for what it really was. I feel like this was a very magical and awesome experience because this is what the other side and the other realm, home where we come from, where we return, this is what it's like. I've been talking about this for 24 years, everyone. But I'm so happy other people are starting to talk about it more and more. I only pause like that because I've been trying to open people up to see that there's a world within this world. The dead doesn't reside up or down. It and who we are and where we come from isn't up or down. There's nobody holding a key to the gate. It is actually us just not wanting to remember, because it makes it almost hard sometimes, because once you do, you're aware of the both worlds. And so sometimes it's hard to keep one foot in and one foot out. Thank you so much. Go follow him, Optimistic Banks. Optimistic Mystic, Optimistic? Yeah, Optimistic Banks. And go listen to his music on Spotify. You could follow him on TikTok and on Instagram. He posts all these things that he believes and talks about. Don't forget that I have Utah coming up. I would love to see you, those of you who are coming out. Can't wait to see you soon. And also check out Patreon, because if it isn't already up by the time you hear this, because I don't know when you're listening to this podcast, Patreon has been updated with a new class and also with new speed reading with a nod to Samhain. Thank you all so much. Follow yourself, follow no one, listen to your inner voice, and I'll see you soon.